guess one way to think about it, right, is that, like, did we have these questions back then, the early days of it, and yet at the same time, I do think, right, we are in a fundamentally different moment because of AI being such a challenge, what it is to humans. So in fact, we are going to segue our way into a conversation about the human beings in the loop, but by way of first talking about privacy. So Lisa Loud and Dylan from Phala, if you can join. And Lisa needs a special round of applause because she flew from a tiny little, not tiny, but a relatively close place, Montreal, by way of Atlanta last night because of a storm that put her in the other end of the country, and she still made it here on time. So thank you for doing that. And Dylan. So guys, just feel free to weigh in on this conversation, but I just obviously want to now dive down into privacy and security, because as I was listening to the panel that these guys had earlier, and we had Dell and Cisco and Akamai talking, and I think it was there was a conversation there about the importance of security inside an enterprise. And I got thinking about Ramesh again, talking about like the scary nature of decentralization. And people look at blockchains like, how on earth is an enterprise going to grapple with all of that chaotic world? They don't know who to call. The compliance officers are freaking out because there's no actual, CEO to harangue if something goes wrong, right? To me, the solution does lie in some form of like on-chain or on-device privacy that wraps all of that in there, and so that the security paradigm, if you like, changes because of confidential computing and other forms of bringing in these privacy factors into it. So maybe just talk to that, Lisa, and then I know Phala's doing a lot with similar kind of TEE type solutions to what Secret's doing. So both of you can weigh in that. How do you? Because we're trying to think here again. This is about how does the Web3 community bring all of its powerful understandings of these new innovative trust layers and distributed systems into the enterprise world, so that collectively we can create a better system for everyone. So just, if you can go from that perspective. Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, son. First, I wanted to say that although I had the counterexample, I use agents every day to do stuff, but they don't actually work very well. So I'm trying to get them to work well. So, and I know Shaw's power user on agents. He does more than anyone else I know with agents every day. But I just wanted to say on the privacy side, maybe we're not at the point now where we can use agents every day and where they're useful and where they're learning and improving themselves. But we're heading towards that. I don't think it'll take 2 decades, but I do think we're heading in an accelerated pace towards that. And the challenge that I see is that these agents are gaining more and more power and will gain more power as they continue to improve. But the pace at which our data is leaking out of them is much faster than anything else. So it's much faster than it was with the internet. With the internet, people could scrape things and Google could figure out what you were searching for, but if we are using agents every day to do things autonomously for us, imagine how much data we're giving that agent and how much it can now, if it gets controlled by somebody else, how it could then act against us, or how that information could be used to influence us or limit our access to information. There's just a lot of scary outcomes that can happen. So while I agree with you that we're not there yet, an index is a good idea, but maybe it's not something practical in everyday today. But if we don't build it now, with the idea that it has to have privacy built in, I think we could fall behind to an extent that it'll be impossible to catch up. So that's why I think it's justified to think about the architecture now, to think about the indexing now, and the Internet of Agents, et cetera, so that we can build something that is intrinsically private, that has the privacy built into it. And I'm going to pass it over to Dylan, because the way that Secret Network does that is with TEEs, Trusted Execution Environments. It's kind of a hardware shortcut. Not very quantum proof, but quantum is way out there. So for now, seems like the best solution that we have available.
Dylan, and also I'd just like to think, how do we take some of these solutions, the TEE, and there are other confidential computing solutions out there as well, and apply that to these registries, right? The scary decentralized world. How would the design of this quilt, the Web3 quilt, be served by TEE and other privacy-preserving solutions?
Yeah, that's a cool question. How does it apply in general where you can easily deploy any kind of image and then be able to ensure that there's some kind of privacy preserving guarantee under the hood is a lot of complex systems that have to come together. And our mission is effectively trying to open source a lot of the modular model that really does do the confidentiality that is very hard to deploy. It's an ever increasing and growing market. Probably by 2030, it's going to be over a $60 billion market for confidential compute. But there is sort of in the back of my mind that AI doesn't succeed without confidentiality, because if I have a digital twin and I want to entrust all of my private data, then how do I trust something that's not my friend? And it doesn't keep my secrets, and it doesn't do anything secret at all. So we are trying to effectively create a decentralized or a democratized stack that allows us to take advantage of the gateway to open an AI that will be able to leverage the confidential virtual machine through virtual machine monitors that is a lot more easy and accessible to deploy and immediately start to leverage these registries, using NVIDIA. And so NVIDIA did something incredible where we can be able to effectively do some kind of hybrid compute, such as a privacy preserving inference model, which is really interesting. And we're seeing Eliza models and these DeepSeek models actually be deployed to Phala. So Phala is like a cloud. You can think of it as like a cloud consortium, really, of D stacks. And so we're looking for others to contribute to D stack, and we want to see how we can potentially do this with even NANDA. So that's kind of my spiel, but confidentiality is probably the most important thing between, I think, now and the next 3 years. I think deep fakes are on the rise, and we have probably around 95% of CISOs don't actually trust how AI is actually currently even being handled in markets today. So it's a completely under thought problem. I've been in the crypto industry now for 5 years, and just this last rally, it was kind of hilarious how many people didn't do anything in the security industry. So I think it's an open market, and I know with Secret Network and others, and there's Amada and Flashbots and other people that we work with and research with, it's still a pretty closed and small ecosystem when we're trying to figure out who's actually out here building these safe AI architectures, and we know that we can deploy them now today. But it's very interesting the kind of research directions that people are going in.
Cool. Kyle, just one last word from you. I think, Venice AI, one of the first applications built on top of Morpheus, of course, had the privacy-preserving inference built in there from the start. How do you guys think about privacy, and what is the way forward for that world?
Yeah, I think that privacy obviously is one of the key considerations that we need to make moving forward, but I think there's a sliding scale, right? I don't think every single agent or every single prompt that you make needs to run through T, especially considering the cost associated with doing that and the scalability in terms of what models can even be hosted through single H100s on T. I think that when we start to look at the end-to-end process, right, is it T? Maybe that's the top level of security, right? Is it distributed and decentralized? Is it just distributed or decentralized? And then am I running through ChatGPT? And when you look at that scale, I think we need to decide what makes sense for which different type of application. And what Morpheus is doing is just creating that marketplace where maybe there is a provider who has T and maybe there is a provider who doesn't, and you kind of let that happen over time based on what you're doing and why you're doing it. And looking at Venice specifically, Venice running essentially their own compute through a decentralized network of Akash, they're able to maintain that privacy by having the end-to-end ownership. Whether it's running on T or not is almost irrelevant because they're controlling the ingress into that compute, even though they
actually don't.
All right. Unfortunately, I'm going to...
It is a problem, and we can discuss at length. agree with you.
Okay, you two guys are out. Thanks for doing this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in Ramesh, steal that chair.